I'm Carole Taylor. On this edition of Journal, we take a look at one of the most challenging jobs in society, policing. Think about it. You take an oath to serve and protect others, even if it means putting your own life on the line. Long gone are the days of peaceful protests, putting the bad guys in jail and keeping them there. Police are now expected to be mental health workers, peacekeepers, drug addiction experts, organized crime investigators, and oh yeah, by the way, let's deal with the disorder on our streets. Meanwhile, the legal and health environment keeps changing around them. Frequently, the police, after making an arrest, find that individual back on the streets, sometimes the same day, ready to offend again and again. The courts are letting us down. But is it because of the way the law is written, or is it political directives that influence these decisions? As well, a new term, complex co-occurring disorders, has entered our vocabulary. This refers to those who are both mentally ill and drug addicted. There's no debate that we as a society have not provided adequate care and facilities for these individuals. So where do they go? Well, in part due to decriminalization, we see them on our streets, often in desperate shape, sometimes violent. Into this complex environment has stepped Steve Rye, Vancouver's new chief constable. While he's new to this position, he's not new to the VPD, where he has served for 30 years, doing everything from walking the beat in East Vancouver to being a hostage negotiator for the emergency response team. After this break, we get to meet the man who is willing to take on a crucial job, Chief of Police. Chief Steve Rye joins us now, and I have to say congratulations. It's an amazing opportunity and challenge.
Thank you very much, Carole. It's great to be here. It is an amazing opportunity and challenge, you're right, but it's an amazing, I felt an obligation. I'm a Vancouver kid, and I couldn't just walk away, so I wanted to take the opportunity to at least compete to see if I can make a difference in the city I grew up in. And it really means a lot to me.
And for 30 years, you've been involved with Vancouver Police, and so you've seen all the stages that the city's gone through. Yeah. When you look at today, what do you think? Are we in a worse place?
Yeah, I've been in policing 35 years. That's why I could have, easily gone and lied on a beach in the Caribbean and sit back. But I'm a bit of a fighter, and I'm also I have strong views on the city. I'm a kid, grew up in Kits, rode my bike around Kits neighborhood. When it was predominantly a Greek neighborhood, Kitsilano High School. Every alley and street after being a cop on the streets for so many years. And the city is we're in a watershed phase of our city. Where are we going to go for the next 20, 30 years? And
so it's pivotal right now.
It's pivotal right now, I think. And policing is always, even though we haven't tried to be, we're cops, we want to fight crime, catch bad people that are doing bad things to good people. That's our envelope, and that's the basics of what Peel, Peel's principles. Sir Robert Peel, when he began modern policing, that's our basics. And we've been drawn into this social debate for the last few decades that's expanded our scope, which plays into how it's impacting the city, whether it's drug addiction, homelessness, mental health crises, poverty. And so I think we're in a pivotal time on how we can maintain our city, continue to be a top 5. It's always in the top 5 in the world when any ranking, Vancouver's always up there. But how can we still be compassionate and get people the help they need? And maybe not always with the police leading the charge. So we're in a pivotal time for our city.
And do you think that it's a cultural war that's going on? These changes?
I do, and I've said it. I say it not to be alarmist, but that's what I sense. I sense there's a misunderstanding from some corners of our city that we're out there trying to help gentrify or help push people out, or we're trying to social engineer one way or the other. That's not what we're trying to do. And there's a silent majority, and it's just the regular family with the white picket fence with a couple of kids going to elementary school, they pay high taxes, they rent their basement to make the mortgage payment. They also have a voice on, hey, we just want to have our sidewalk safe. My kids can play hopscotch like the old days, play ball hockey on the street. We don't have to worry there may be a homeless person or a person shooting up in their alley. They're a little bit more quiet, but I think they're the majority. And we've got a vocal group that has put us in the middle of that debate, law enforcement. I do think there's a culture war. I think it's a fight for the future. And if you look at other cities that have tried to be all things to all people, it hasn't worked out. So San Francisco's an example, Seattle's an example, Portland's an example. Detroit certainly back, you can look when you take the fabric and the structures and the core structures out of a city and you hurt them, you defund them, or you weaken them. It takes decades, lifelong, generations to bring a city back to liveliness. Detroit's an example of that. So there is a culture war going on.
So here we are, and you're the new chief constable. What are you going to do?
Well, first thing, is just be honest, like this conversation. I think sometimes people in certain leadership positions, and policing included, because the chief, you're trying to be the chief, you want to be impartial, you want to be fair, and we're going to be that. We're going to be impartial, we're going to be fair on how we deploy, how we police. But I think we also have to state where we stand. And one of the first things is creating a clear vision on, we want to get back to basics, we want to get to our core mandate, our core beliefs as law enforcement. So while during my tenure, at least as chief, I'm going to try to stay the course and not get pulled into political direction, but we're going to speak the truth. So if it's defund, we're going to lay out how defund would look. If it's about, hey, you're arresting too many people with mental illness, we're going to call the system out. We're not arresting people with mental illness. They're the ones, some of them that need help, and they call the police, or families call the police. My son or daughter's out of control. We help them enter the system, but they need some help in that system. So you could call it calling it out, or you could just say stating the obvious, or I call it just being honest. So one of the first things, the most important thing, is just getting our organization of 2,500 people working in the same direction for the good of the city, for the good of citizens, for families, being fair, compassionate, but we're going to stick to our mission. And I'm not going to confuse our officers. We're going to give them the resources, we're going to give them the support they need, but we're going to hold others accountable in the system.
That will be a change, because I often have looked at situations that must be untenable. For instance, with a very specific demonstration group, there was a woman leading it. The police identified, they had all of the information enough to charge this particular individual, and then nothing happens. Like it goes into the ether. He's arrested by the police, and then there's no charge that comes following it. Mm-hmm. And I would think that no one ever stands up and says, the system is wrong, that this is happening.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that particular case without more detail, but I'll tell you this about the system. The system, we're Canada, so I've thought about this, in different ways. We're Canadians, we're nice. We're nice, compassionate people. We always want to give everyone the second chance. We don't want to incarcerate, which is good. I agree with that. But there needs to be some fine-tuning and tweaking on, has it gone to a point where now, the fabric of our society, the core silent majority, are they suffering, or are they being impacted disproportionately because we're not willing to adjust as a society, because our DNA as Canadians is making it difficult for leaders that make laws, change laws, to break through that barrier of Canadiana bail reform or the justice system, we just have a different look on it than a lot of other countries. We're probably closer to the Scandinavian kind of, viewpoint, but even those countries have toughened up on some of the areas that are creating quality of life issues for their citizens. We don't certainly want to go the American U.S. way where our jails are full, but there is a, getting back, there is a bit of a culture pressure building where people are demanding more. Look at the students, that are foreign students changing. There's a discussion now from one of the federal leaders. People want a little bit more frame around protecting our identity.
And so you think that's the point that we're at now?
I do. I think we're at the point where we got to either go this way or that way. I don't think this milieu, let's please everyone in the middle, do a little bit of this, do a little bit of that is going to work, because what's Canada going to look like in 25 years or 30 years? And I think we're in a pivotal time for that, for our history.
And so it's going to be up to the leaders. You're a leader.
Yeah.
Our politicians are leaders. It's going to take leadership to say, this is no longer acceptable, and this is what we're going to do, and why.
Yeah. So I'm a street level, ground level leader. I'm a civic leader.
And I'm going to interrupt right there, take a break, and we'll find out your assessment and solutions.
Okay.
Back in a sec. So as I was saying to Chief Constable Steve Rye just before our break, you've identified some of the issues, and your approach is going to be more out there and talking about them. Give me an example, for instance, of what you think should be done with these repeat offenders over and over and over and over.
I can start by telling you, so our officers deal disproportionately with the same, let's say, the numbers change, but the same 300-400 criminals or people. They're not, some of them doing crime they have issues, psychological, addiction, but some are just hard criminals. And they're everything from street level to mid to high level criminals. But it's about 300 or 400 of them. We probably spend 80% of our time chasing them around, getting them into the system. And of course, our Canadian system is set up to give people, not 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes, but maybe 10 strikes. So it's very difficult for the police, 10 strikes you're out, maybe not even 10. So this is where I've said I'm going to be much more, we're going to do our part. People are going to be put into the system, and then we're going to call the system out. And we're doing that. So we're going to continue to use our resources much more surgically and strategically on crime fighting. We've been spread thin on our resources on, supporting, having 2 officers deal with a social pillar. Another 3 officers here, maybe a whole unit stood up on something else. And it's all the peripheral stuff. So I'm just going to bring that back in and make sure our resources are being used strategically for our core mission. Now, we're going to continue the dialogue with political leaders, but you see what's happened so far, how many conversations we've had in the open, in private, in meetings, on, mental health and supports for that. And the dial isn't moving. You heard the mayor last week when we were doing the Lapu-Lapu update, and I couldn't make comment because it's before the courts, but certainly he begged for help on mental health supports. So we're going to do what policing does, and we're going to put a spotlight on it by sharing data, speaking about it, staying in our lane professionally, but trying to hold others accountable in the open. So you're going to see an announcement later today, a plan from the city on next steps forward on how to hold everyone accountable. So transparency on how leaders are doing, civic leaders, civic bureaucrats, the police chief, the fire chief. One of the ways to make change is to be transparent, because transparency drives accountability. And when you have accountability in a system, which is coming in the city and which will be announced later today, the numbers and the data and who's responsible and who's at fault and where the needle's not moving will all be in the open. And we do that internally. We have police use a system called CompStat, stands for Comparative Statistics. It's been in use for decades with us, decades in New York, where it began, and now the model's going to move to a civic model using that system of data and transparency and accountability in the open for the public. So we're going to use the system to help drive change in a very transparent way. And people are going to be uncomfortable with that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just so I don't overstep myself, are you actually saying if you've got a situation and you believe that maybe there's a provincial policy
right.
that is causing this situation, you'll stand up and say, this is the problem?
Yeah, it'll be evident. So let's just say, I'll just speak for the police. So when we hold our district commanders accountable internally, every month we meet, and if there's a high number of purse snatchings on a particular corner, month after month, the commander has to explain what's happening, why it's happening, what he's done about it, and why the needle hasn't moved. And if the needle hasn't moved because, hey, there's a SRO around the corner that's driving a lot of the crime in that area, well, the question will be, well, have you challenged the people that own that SRO, that control that SRO, that manage the SRO, and put the pressure there? So when you do it on a citywide level, if the same people are on the street corner, homeless and shooting in the alleys, and the police have arrested them, and another part of the system is not getting them counseling, housing, food, clothing, or mental health supports, that will be called out because it'll be in the open. So this will be a big change for bureaucracy at the city level. Could end up being a model used in other cities as well. So I've always said if you want to change anything, transparency drives accountability. If you're in the open and people that own it, if the information is there for the public, that drives people to change. So in this case, the larger issue, if Vancouver's showing stats on gaps in the system where the police are doing their part, fire's doing their part, Parks is doing their part, who isn't doing their part? You don't even have to accuse anybody. The data will show openly every month.
I think that's part of the frustration people are feeling right now. Like, you don't feel safe on the streets. It doesn't matter how many times people say some of it's getting better or not. People don't feel safe. And I think that one of the issues is that we don't really understand how the system works. So, for instance, mentally ill folks who, need care. And politicians will say, well, we've got care, we've got beds, we've got the Mental Health Act. And so you're forced to pull back from your criticism, but then you find out that even if you're named under the Mental Health Act, and people assume you're there to stay, you can go on leave. And you go out and leave, and you're on the streets, and then once again, you as the police have to deal with it. I didn't know that they said they've got more than 300 people on leave from the Mental Health Act. I mean, how do you make that work?
Navigating the system, the data, I have, first of all, mental illness is not a crime. The police have never said that. I think most people have family members that struggle with some sort of mental illness. Cousins, distant cousins, but it touches every family almost. So it's not a crime. It should be in the open. It should be treated with dignity and respect and compassion. We're talking about to the point where, you have somebody running down the street with a sword and they're at a crisis level. They've been in crisis for a long time and now somebody's lost a limb. It should be, somebody's mental health at a level where somebody's not getting behind a car and doing something. We're talking about that, the system isn't covering those dangerous individuals with severe mental illness. They're using the system, defining that person the same way they're defining, maybe your cousin has depression. It's not the same system. There has to be compassion doesn't mean, turning a blind eye. There has to be, compassionate care, but in custody.
And you're going to start calling this out.
We have to. We have no choice. The amount of so when you say people don't feel safe, do you know the stats for the city are across the Canada, including Vancouver, at an all-time low? Violent crime, property crime, business crime, break-in enters, robberies are all at a low. Displacement, even the neighborhoods where downtown East Side drives a lot of the crime stats, the surrounding neighbors, as we put pressure on, the crime is down even in the surrounding neighborhoods.
Obviously, we're going to have to continue this conversation, and I appreciate your being willing to talk this through with us, because being transparent and calling it out is going to be a big part of going forward. So thank you for joining us today, and please come back.
Thank you, Carole. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Back in a moment. There is no one agency that's going to solve the complicated disorder in our streets. The only possible way forward is if everyone starts to work together with the clear goal of making our communities feel safe again by providing appropriate care for those in need and putting a stop to the revolving door of repeat offenders. If only there was a will to do that. Let me know your thoughts on YouTube. Till next time, I'm Carole Taylor.